Just a little forward. Thanks, Geoff, for giving me the go-ahead to do this collaboration video. To everybody else who views Geoff's channel and mine, I hope you find this interesting. It's a really good topic, and it's a sensitive topic too, and it really is nice to hear why people collect plants and what motivates them to do so. And the more opinions we have out there, the more interesting and the more positive aspects we can build up around the subject. Because let's face it, in my mind, if you don't have an interest in plants or you don't find them amazing, you're really missing out on something, because the natural world around us is truly amazing, and it's something that we should all have a little piece of, even if it's a garden or a few hanging plants in our house. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this. Thanks for watching. Hi, welcome back to my life with plants. I'm Newman. Today we're going to do we're going to watch a YouTube, and this particular gentleman, his name is Geoff, and he comes from the UK, and his YouTube channel is called Grow Up Man. And I wanted to do a little listen and have a little talk myself about what it is to be in a plant collection trap, as he calls it. And Geoff has been an avid collector of plants, and he especially got into tropicals in about 2018, where he converted a greenhouse into a tropical zone. And anyway, we're going to watch, and I'm going to give a little insight into other areas of the topic. Anyway, if you're interested, stay tuned.
Okay, very strange this, sitting down in here. So, I want to talk to you about the plant collection trap. I've just come in from work, by the way. This is why I'm full of gardening gear. So, no nice nails with me, no nice fancy outfit. So, the plant collection trap. This is how I see it. Everybody who starts collecting plants seems to follow what I call a continuum, with perhaps maybe a pathway with various like rabbit holes, side quests or side paths along this journey towards a goal, which you actually never actually get to. That's a lot of actuallys. Start again. That you actually never get to. So you start off, you collect a few hybrids. You might decide, and in my case, 6 years ago it was orchids. And I've been through this plant collection trap many, many times and come out the other side. So I collected orchids and I bought as many as I could, loads of beautiful hybrid flowers, loads of beautiful blooms. But what I didn't take into account was that they maybe didn't all need the same conditions. So I created these conditions in the greenhouse without actually taking any care as to what the plants really needed.
So we're going to stop there for a minute and reflect on what Geoff was talking about. So he's talking about somebody who's really ambitious and tries to start out a collection of plants, but there's many temptations along the way that makes you deviate from probably the one and only plant that you really desire. So there are a lot of growers out there that don't do that. They tend to stick to one genus and they pursue that for most of their life. But Geoff and me have got something in common, because we spread out and we branch into other things. Regarding a goal in mind, and we're trying to reach it, I can elaborate on that. For people like me, there was never a goal intended in the first place, and never thought about a goal. It was all about trying to replace bad habits with good habits, and trying to get something that gives you peace of mind, and something that relaxes you and you enjoy doing. Anyway, we're going to get back to Geoff. Let's continue the video.
So as time went on, various plants died. Of course they would, because I wasn't providing the right conditions. I took no account of whether they were warm growing, cool growing, they needed a dry rest, or whether they needed lots of humidity and so on. This is one of the steps along the way, along this.
So we're going to stop Geoff right there. So he's referring to the fact that he started off his journey with orchids, and he started off with quite a lot. And that's something that's different about me and Geoff, is that I started off with plants that were mainly plants that grew in the neighborhood, and there was nothing that was difficult to grow whatsoever. And I had a very minimal collection that grew slowly, very slowly, over the course of something like 19 years I've been here in Japan. Anyway, let's get back to Geoff.
Journey. So you do this with, it might be orchids, it might be another type of plant, another genera of plants, and eventually you realise, because your money's disappearing and your plants are dying, so you change your environment to match a particular type of orchid.
Okay, so what he's referring to now is something that happens to a lot of us, and it's even happened to me a little, but not so much as he's describing now, is that some of the joy has been taken out of the hobby from the fact that he's adopted a lot of kinds of orchids, and that he's set one growing condition that doesn't apply to all of these plants. So that's part of the joy and the love of growing plants, is to mainly look and observe, be more observant, use your powers of observation, and to buy very little at a time. And the best way to do that is to check out your neighborhood and other people that are growing plants around you, and you just visit them every now and then, or you may see those plants in the neighborhood growing, and you take notes, mental notes of all the seasons and climate and everything, and even ask questions to the grower if you happen to have a relationship or get friendly with them, so that you learn a little bit more about them. Because pursuing a lot of species within a genera, especially orchids, can lead you down to having a bad opinion about the plants all over, and you're better to take it easy. Just try to have a little bit of, be a bit sensible, control yourself, and to buy the very, very hardiest and the easiest to grow of plants at first, so that you get a joy for them. And then as you start learning about more complicated varieties, complicated meaning that maybe they grow at a very high altitude and they need cool conditions, and you don't have them, and you may have to try to find an area like that within your house or your garden that can really suit those plants. But anyway, we're going to get back to Geoff now. Listen a little bit more.
This case, and then maybe you start buying to match that particular environment, and things go a bit better for a while, so you buy more of them. And this is where we start going down side routes or side quests. So perhaps you buy more and more of these plants, you know the conditions they like, you can grow them, everything's fine. You get to a point where you've too many plants, and you get to like this tipping point So you get more space because what seemed like a cavernous room before is now absolutely cram-packed with plants. And of course you can't stop collecting because you're on your way to this goal that you don't really know what it will be when you...
So Geoff stresses quite a lot about this goal that you're trying to reach. And I suppose it's called satisfaction. If I could put it down to one word, to be satisfied. And in life, it doesn't matter what you do, you never get satisfaction. You come to the point where you get some success and you get some happiness, and then you wake up the very next morning and then you start pursuing it all again. So whether it's success or ambition, pride, egotism, and all of these things are kind of wrapped up with the human psyche and the human tendency to want to pursue something and get better and better and better at it. That kind of stems right away from what this hobby or what this genuine love for plants is all about. And anyway, we'll get back to Geoff again.
Get there. So you either make more space or you reach that tipping point, tip over the other side, and you can't look after them. That happened to me with the hothouse, which I'll come to in a little while. And you go on holiday, or somebody else looks after them, or whatever happens, and you get to that point, it's like, that's it, cannot deal with this anymore, I'm going to have to either sell them, or get rid of the ones I don't like, or we're going to start again. That is a tipping point, and you might even go off the whole idea and stop doing it for a while. Okay, so that's one little side quest that comes to a dead end. Or, in my case, I started looking at other plants, because I like lots of plants. I didn't just like orchids, even though orchids is a really, really big family.
Okay, Geoff makes a good point there. Is if you get stuck with a genera of plants like orchids, and maybe you can't find enough species that make it worthwhile, maybe they're not flowering very well and there's nothing you can really do, it's always a good idea to look at other genera out there. Yeah, don't be stubborn. Just have a try, even if it's just pansies, and they're so common. Just try to give yourself some variety there and create joy in the hobby. This is why you started it in the first place. It's to give you a balance in your life. And there's one thing that I always say on my program, and that's looking after your plants is not a chore, it's part of your self-care. I'll get back to Geoff now.
I started looking at begonias, I started looking at carnivorous plants thanks to Brad's greenhouse. I started looking at Streptocarpus and various other things. I can't just keep to one genera of plant. So we start collecting the whole collecting thing again, and we build it up, go through the same process of deciding, we go through the same process of finding the things that we like and starting to grow them or trying to grow them, finding out that they don't actually suit your conditions, so you either change your conditions or you go to the plants that do like your conditions. That's a bit of progress, isn't it, actually finding the plants that will suit the conditions you've got. Can we ever get to a point where all our plants are all needing different conditions and we're providing all those different conditions? Well, of course not. That would also be end of the line, start again. So eventually you get to the point where you've now got loads of different plants. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you get to that same point. You can't cope with them all. There's too many.
So it seems like that Geoff's had a fair amount of stresses over the hobby over many, many years, and coming to the point where you have too many and you just can't breathe, you can't think, you can't look after them. That all goes back to the the fact that while you attain new plants, you should do it little by little. Try to refrain from buying too many, and try to not follow trends or anything like that, because least we forget that if you have somebody living in Florida and they have a big lanai and they have oodles of space, they just have so much space that they're able to just buy excessively. Plus they have everything set up and they have the weather there. But you don't see them with cacti, and you don't see them with other genera of plants that don't suit their environment. They're just sticking to what they can. But we're attracted to what they have. And the ultimate bottom line is that if they weren't living there and they're living in a different part of the US or in Europe or somewhere like that, they'll probably have totally different plants. They maybe just have African violets and that's all they grow. So at least we forget about environments there, like Geoff was explaining. And to come to the point where you have too many is part of your learning that goes on through the hobby. And you shouldn't ever get stressed about reaching the point where you have too many and build up negativity in the hobby. You should refrain from it, because if you practice something over and over enough in your mind gets into that habit and it'll keep reflecting upon it. You get the same relay of negativity, because what you practice you get good at. Okay, let's go back to Geoff.
In my case, I set up a new environment in the hothouse. It was a warm growing space where, hey, I can grow loads of warm growing plants. I did actually do it in here at one point, but it was just too expensive. I got to the point where it was so lush in there, I couldn't even find the pots. Got to that tipping point, went away on holiday, somebody come in to water them for me, as you would, with a hose pipe, sprayed the whole thing, completely fused the electricity, fused the house, so I had no heating, I had no lighting. Half the plants were sitting in big buckets of water, the ones that I'd actually put in a non-holy or a non-draining pot, so they just filled up with water. Tender plants like my beloved begonia luxurians, anybody remember that? Tell me in the comments if you did. That died because it can't cope 2 weeks sitting in water. I actually lost about half of the plants then. Again, tipping point, fell over the other side, had to shut the whole thing down. Not to mention the cost of the electricity to heat the thing, couldn't do that.
It seems that Geoff really had a motivation there, and there's nothing that Geoff's done that's a mistake, and he should never think of it like that. He just loves plants, and he wanted to try and have a tropical greenhouse and everything, and mistakes happen all the time, and I would be a hypocrite to just make blunt statements about, oh, why did that happen? Why didn't you think about it? But I guarantee that 1 week or 2 weeks or a month from now, I'm going to make some mistakes. And that's just part of what it is. You just make those and you can't help it. So he's being very open there and explaining what happened and everything. And yeah, it's shocking to lose so many plants and actually lose control of what you're trying to control. But I'm sure that, you know, as time goes on, you learn more about those plants just from how they reacted to the such harsh treatment. And I'm sure that in amongst them all, there are ones that you can actually have and collect. And the other thing that it's not a good thing at all, but it helps you to reduce your collection, and that's the fact that we can't grow everything in the first place. And even if we were able to, if we had the most amazing greenhouse, they had all these different microclimates from the beginning to the end of it, and you had all these special air conditioners and humidifiers and everything that could keep all of those temperatures going, you would be so hectically busy, you might as well just give up your job and go into business. Anyway, here we go. Let's listen to Geoff a little bit more.
So that went, and then we had a big rest, and then come back into the greenhouse again. So that's another side little quest, or another little side quest. Another little side journey that you might go down the species route. Right, all these hybrids, but they're not really plants that grow in the wild, and they are never ending. Somebody's always coming out with a hybrid. I can't keep buying more and more hybrids. Let's try species. I've done it with begonias. So I've got...
Okay, Geoff talks about the other temptation, the biggest one of all is called hybrids. And hybrids, I mean, if you had a business in plants and you have the facilities and you're able to do hybridization, you want to put the product out there so you can sell it. It's only natural, and we get hooked into it and we want to buy them. But just don't forget, I think I've mentioned this before on my channel, is that if you have a cattleya, for example, and it has a yellow flower with a purple lip, labellum, why would you buy another one that's yellow that has a purple lip and go buy another one? And even vendor off into a dendrobium that's yellow and has a purple lip. You got to have a little restraint, and you got to pull yourself together a little bit. You got to ask yourself these questions. You can't just give in to the habit, the addiction. Not to mention that this becoming an addiction to that point where you can't control yourself, now it's become something bad, and you don't want it to be like that. Let's go back to Geoff.
Into begonia species, I've seen people do it with orchids. I've seen people growing orchids from seed. I've seen people trying to do the, what do you call it? I can't remember what you call it, a meristem thing. I can't remember.
That's okay, Geoff. Yeah. I forget stuff too.
Started growing, that's where it is, started growing begonias from seed. Started getting back into propagation again. What do I need? I need a warm space. So I have a grow tent. By the way, I know it's not actually a grow tent. It's a mini greenhouse, really. A proper grow tent keeps all the light inside, totally opaque. I didn't want that. So I'm calling it a grow tent. But guess what happens? I've run out of room. I need a bigger grow tent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one. I'm going to make one. I would actually rather buy it, but there isn't one that will fit this odd space. So I'm going to make something bigger. That's another little side quest. No doubt I'll get to the end of the line with that.
We'll just stop Geoff there. So what he's saying is that, and he points out something really valuable, and that's to get around problems such as over collecting and being in a habit. You want to always remember that. I can't remember what I was going to say because I got interrupted. But yeah, you always want to have that. I can't remember what I was going to say. We have to get back to Geoff now.
Where I can't afford to buy any more begonia seeds, or all my begonia seeds germinate, and guess what? I have thousands of plants. I
just remember what Geoff was on about. So he's admitting to the addiction of plants, and he's trying to come to terms with it. So one of the best things you can do, especially with people that you live with, is just be honest about it and say, I have struggles with addiction to plants. It wasn't supposed to be an addiction. It was supposed to be something that gave me joy and happiness and a little break from the busyness of life, and kind of like people do to relax. It's just our way of doing it. And now he's starting off a new venture where he's trying to grow seedlings in there, in that greenhouse, and he wants to make it bigger. There's no mistake. You have the right to do that, pursue it, learn it. There's no problem with it.
What to do with them? Another end of the line and another shutdown. I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to sell the greenhouse and I'm going to build a barbecue here instead and have a nice patio where we can sunbathe in the summer. That's gone through my mind loads of times, and it went through my mind the last 8 months when I had that little hiatus.
Okay, so Geoff's talking about things that he's imagined or he's thought about many times over, and that's one of them is just giving up on plants altogether and turning the area into a patio and having a barbecue. For those of us that started off plants in the first place, as I said before, we didn't have a goal. There was no goal in sight. It was part of a coping mechanism. It's something that a lot of people do because they're lonely, they suffer from loneliness, or they've had addictions and they've tried to find other things to cope with it, to give them new habits. And possibly it's something that you've always enjoyed all your life, but you've been suppressed from it, and you've had to do other things to make other people happy. When you have all of those kind of experiences in your life, you never want to make this one negative. There's just no way. I've had somebody say to me, don't you get burnout from what you do? And of course I don't, because I've had lots of other experiences that I don't care to bring up. And this particular hobby and this passion for plants, I don't want to turn it into that. There's no way.
The truth is, we all go along this pathway with our plant collection, and whichever side quest you go on your journey, you think there is going to be a goal at the end. But my point is, there isn't a goal. You think there is, but that's an illusion, because the real goal of looking after plants is exactly that, the business of looking after them. And once you realize that, then it may becomes a little bit easier. What do I like doing more than anything? I like sitting in here making videos. No, I don't like doing that. I like coming in here and I like mulling about, messing about with plants, sowing seeds, growing them, cutting bits off, repotting them, spraying all my pests. How could I like that? It's just the looking after that I like. I'm saying pests because I can see some little fungus gnats flitting about over there, and that's grabbing my attention. So yeah, it's the looking after that we enjoy. And anybody who's a YouTuber will no doubt know, no matter what level they're at, if they're a little mini YouTuber like me, or if they're a great big YouTuber like somebody who's a great big YouTuber, no doubt they will realise that making videos is actually very unsatisfying. It doesn't, well, in my case, it doesn't make much money. It's only a few pounds. It takes an awful long time if you want to think about it first.
Okay, and then Geoff goes off to talk about making YouTubes and that. I think what he was trying to say is that sometimes, occasionally, it's unsatisfying and that you don't see any point. But part of the reason why some of us small YouTubers do it is to share the hobby and the passion. Is to share it, get a little bit of feedback, and hope that other people out there get a little bit of knowledge or a bit of joy from what you're doing. You're just sharing it, so it's not a job or anything. I mean, if you wanted to make it a job, you could do that if you want, but in my case, it's not that. It's not a job. I already have a job. Why would I want another one?
if you want to write a script, no script here as you can tell, if you want to then go through and edit the whole thing, nobody might watch it. And then YouTube has this fantastic thing where they show you what you get out of your last 10 videos. Is that your best video? Is it your second best, your third best, right up to number 10? There is nothing more.
I must give another comment here, is that why are you growing plants anyway? Is it to make other people happy? And why do you care what if somebody has this alter ego that has nothing to do with what you're trying to do on your YouTube channel? Then you shouldn't care too much about it, because I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anybody else says or whatever anybody else thinks. You're still going to do what you have to do, aren't you, to be happy with your hobby. And however, somebody may rate or distribute your content or whatever way that they do that. They're just doing it as a business, and because they just got to make money. But our goal, or it should be, is just to give good content. You don't always have to have a script or anything, as Geoff's saying, but just to get stuff out there so that people can watch it. Because without YouTube, you know, as I say again, going back to when I was growing up, we didn't have YouTube and there was no internet. And if you didn't meet anybody, you learned nothing. You were on your own. You could go to a society, but where did they get their information from? They just resorted to their own little club, and then they have to reach out to get their resources. But these days we get our resources from lots of people. I mean, I got pitcher plants, Nepenthes, yeah, and also Sarracenias, and I learned almost instantly from a YouTube channel about how to look after them, things that I didn't know. And I could buy books about it, but seeing is believing, and listening to this guy, that's why we're doing it.
Disheartening than constantly getting 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 after your last video, after your last few videos. But we come back and we make some more, and that's what I've done today. But in my case, I had a full 8 months off to say, you know what, I don't need the videos. What do I actually enjoy? I enjoy coming into the greenhouse, and I enjoy mulling about with my plants, looking after them as best I can, propagating them, seeing what I can do to make them grow better, trying to solve all the different problems that comes along with growing plants. Don't forget that don't actually want to grow in the UK. None of these want to grow in the UK. People forget that, I think, sometimes. This is a very untropical place where I am growing them. So that, for me, is a very convoluted way of saying collecting plants isn't what you think it is. It is an illusion. You think you are on a journey when in actual fact it is the journey that is the goal, not what is at the end of it. Because what is truly at the end of it is, oh my God, I can't stand this anymore. I've completely let them take over my life and I'm going to stop. And as soon as you realise that, then you can get back to what is actually good about it. Yes, you will kill plants. Yes, some won't thrive. Yes, some will get loads of pests. But you can concentrate on trying to solve those problems and enjoying the process as you go along.
So one thing Geoff reflects on is that in the UK it's a completely untropical place, and yet living in the tropics where I am, you would think that would solve all of your problems, but it doesn't, because in the tropics all of these plants that we're attracted to, orchids and begonias and all these plants that have delicate leaves, they all come from the coolest places in the tropics, cooler than you think. Everyone goes on and on about a phalaenopsis. Oh yeah, it wants 35 degrees. Nice steamy greenhouse, 35 degrees. We get 35 degrees in the house with 80% humidity during the monsoon, and those things die in the pots. They die. It's too hot. I have to put them on mounts, and I stick them out in a corner by the front door, underneath an eave where this constant airflow is moving, to keep them down about 30 degrees. And I water them up to 2 or 3 times because they're on a mount, this particular one. And it's out of the sun. And that's what it's like. So don't underestimate your growing conditions. When maybe you don't have so much experience with other countries or living there or getting a feel for actually what it's like for where these plants actually come from. And it's very hard to explain climate in detail, even explaining it, and people just watch you through the screen. But if your plants are doing really, really well, and you think that it's not hot enough, maybe it doesn't need to be hotter than that. That's all I'm saying. And at the moment, the Phalaenopsis that I have indoors here, the maximum temperature is about 20 degrees during the day, and it'll go down to, it can go down to 10 degrees. But we do have an air conditioner on here that we turn on because we don't want to get too cold. And there you have it.
Sometimes, as somebody pointed out, sometimes my plants look crap. Why? Because I've not looked after them. I've been doing other things. Real life gets in the way. But I'm confident that when I come in here and I start messing about with them and start trying to improve growing conditions and solve all the little problems that come along, I'm confident that I can get them growing nicely again. And if I can't, guess what? They go in the bin. That's just the way it is. And
Okay, so at least we forget that if you do go for a trip to the tropics, maybe Indonesia, the Philippines, Java, all of these tropical countries, you'll best bet you that finding a pristine plant, whether it's a begonia or an African violet, a monstera, I don't know, a pothos, finding them in mint condition is quite rare and unique. And every now and then you'll find a bigger one that's actually bigger than it's recorded. Like, how did the leaves get that big? Because they find their little excellent spot within their environment that's quite harsh. Tropical weather is very harsh, even though that they do come from that kind of environment. And they got holes all eaten through them with caterpillars and bugs gnawing on them, and they have these anthocyanins in their leaves to make them blend in with dead vegetation, to put caterpillars and butterflies off because they see colors and they don't lay their eggs on it. Number two is that they give off toxins because they've been adapting to this for millions of years, and they do have toxins and they do have defenses, but they never look any good. And if you have these excellent looking perfect plants, maybe you get a calathea, and it's absolutely perfect. It's not going to be absolutely perfect for long in their greenhouse. They got to get it out of there. Well, it's starting to get their fresh growth right at the pristine, perfect season in the greenhouse. Get rid of it. They got to get it out of there. Otherwise, they all end up in the rubbish, just like Geoff's saying. Because there's nobody on earth, and not even nature, can keep a plant going nicely all the time. So try not to ridicule yourself just because your plants are not looking good all the time. It's natural to prune them. I got a calathea that in the best of seasons, and I'm being positive here, can get all sorts of brown tips and wrinkling and stuff like that, and I just got to trim it off. It's just normal, and don't let that put you off. That's normal, okay? Plants in the wild, they get eaten, chewed, and all sorts of things happen to them. And the reason why you get this image in your head of a perfect plant is because you have the you have the desire, or you have the motivation, and your target is to look for the best plant. You're not out there to look for the worst plant, because they're all over the place, struggling plants. But you'll see this one beautiful one. Well, that's how they're supposed to look. That's like one out of millions in the jungle.
Usually don't buy them again. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I love a plant so much I keep trying with it. But most of the time I throw it away and I start again with something else. So tell me in the comments down below, where are you on the plant collection trap continuum? Are you down a rabbit hole somewhere? Is there a rabbit hole I've not thought of? What's your thoughts on this whole process? Tell me in the comments. And for now, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Okay, that about wraps it up. And if you want to check out Geoff's YouTube, go ahead. He's really honest. When he has growing condition difficulties, or he's trying to overcome a cultural problem with his plants, he gives the best advice, because he puts everything to the test so that there's no prevarications from the truth there, and he'll do it right for you. And I've learned stuff off him too that I didn't even know about. Anyway, thanks for watching again. We'll see you again next time. Bye bye.